Hey everyone, it's Melody with Design by Melody here. I am here for the Sonshine Stamp Company design team. I am actually creating a project life spread for you guys today. The very first thing that you see me doing is laying out my photos, and I'm actually creating this spread with 5 4x6 photos. I don't have any 3x4 photos in this week's spread, and I'm actually going to create a bit of a flip pocket for you. Now, if you are a viewer of my channel and you've been a viewer for a while, you may be familiar with my flip pockets, but I like to have interactive elements on my page for my readers to be involved in the page. Instead of just flipping through an album, they actually have some interactive pieces that they can participate with. So I'll walk you through me creating that flip pocket later on in this video. So make sure you stay tuned to the end. If that is something you like or want to see how I create, just make sure you stick to the end. So the very first thing I did was lay out some 3x4 pockets or cards to go in those pockets, and most of those cards are actually from LE Studio. I've pulled out my little LE Studio pile of cards as well as just my miscellaneous pile of cards that I got in I've collected over the time. And I settled on these 4. Now they're primarily pink and white with a few pops of red, gold, and yellow. I picked those colors primarily because the photos themselves are all pretty dark. There's a lot going on in the photos, but having this lighter middle row kind of helps ground it and tone down everything a little bit. So the very first stamp that I used is called the large banners, and that is what I stamped, that large banner that's on the top photo of the cannon, Kaylin, and the cannon in downtown Raleigh. And this is just one day. Now we don't live but maybe 10 or 15 minutes from downtown Raleigh, but we don't always go down and just kind of walk through the center of downtown and look at all the historical things. So this weekend we actually did. This particular weekend that I'm documenting here is one that we actually did. So I have that large banner up at the top that I stamped just on a piece of scrap paper. And then I also took the Planar Basics stamp set and stamped out that yellow banner as well. That word date was actually from the large banner stamp set, I believe. And I'm just going to use it here on this card. And I'm going to add a little bit more to it in a moment, but first, whenever I'm pulling out my stamps, I kind of like to do a lot of the stamping at first so I can make sure I get the things stamped and down that I want, and then I go back and embellish it a little bit more. As I mentioned, I'm creating a flip pocket, so I just use a little bit of this washi strip from those washi strips. I believe those are Simple Stories, but I'm not 100% sure. But I'm going to create a little bit of a flip here, and it's just going to be a tab that you can lift up, and I will use the Planar Basics stamp set to create that flip here in just a moment. But first I'm kind of going through and determining what else I want to add. Now I pulled off this little doily, just a partial doily that was on the On Trend 2 sticker sheet, and I'm just adding here. I'm going to have a couple decorative cards, 2 decorative cards here in this middle row, and then I'm going to have 2 that hold journaling. And then I'm also going to have journaling on the bottom of the flip pocket as well. So there are 3 major parts that are going to have journaling. The photos don't need a whole lot of explaining. It's just a weekend that I captured here in Raleigh. We were home that weekend, and then also Ernest's parents came into town. So there are a couple things that we did that I am going to get documented here, but not a whole lot of a story to tell. It's really just kind of telling what we were doing, not necessarily telling a lengthy story. Now I'm doing my standard project life style, which is where I keep the 4x6 cards with a white border. I keep those squared, and then I take my 3x4 cards in the middle and I line them up to a regular Project Life branded card to make sure that they all are cut to be the same. I just don't like it when the backside peeks through. It's just a little quirky thing that I don't like, so I always try to cut them all to the same size, and then I round those corners as well. Now I used the Celebrate stamp set here this card had yay on it, so I felt like it needed just something to kind of decorate around the edges, and the Celebrate stamp set was perfect for this. It has a couple different options for banners, and this one I just took and I stamped on the corners of it, and then I'm going to use some colored pencils here in a moment to color those in. And I'm going to use blue, or like a light blue, and a yellow. The yellow plays off the yellow in that card, but then the light blue kind of plays off a couple of the other photos because there's a lot of blue that shows up in those photos. As you can see, that Raleigh picture right at the top where Kaylin's looking at the city of Raleigh, or like the downtown Raleigh map, looking for the historical sites, and I've got him just pointing to a place where we are going. So That photo has a lot of blue in it, as well as the photo on the bottom right where the flip pocket is. Ernest jacket or shirt is a really bright blue color. Now, since I'm creating a flip pocket, I need something to go on the back side. Now, if I had another 4x6 photo, it would be perfect to go here, but I don't have another one. I only have 5. I don't have 6. So I'm taking a 4x6 card that I have in my stash, and I believe this is LE Studio as well. And I'm just going to embellish the back of this. Now, this is also another perfect place for me to add another bit of journaling. This is going to be the third spot where some journaling is, but I'm also going to add a bit of a title. So I'm going to use the Lisa's letters, which love these, absolutely love these alphas, like can't say enough good things about them. I'm going to use these to stamp out family time. They're just the perfect height. They're not quite an inch. I believe they're about 3/4 of an inch, but I like the shadowing effect it has. You could very easily color these in and create a little bit more of a shadowing effect, or change the color of them, or whatever you want to do. But I really like these stamps. I just think they're perfect size. So I'm stamping out family time. And the reason I'm doing this is because these photos here on the bottom kind of document our time with Ernest's parents when they were here. And this is, as I mentioned, this is going to be the third place where my journaling goes. I'm going to use a piece of that washi, I guess a piece of the washi on these little washi strips. And this is just another one with the hearts, and it's just kind of the teal hearts. And then I'm going to use these Kaiser Craft tiles. Now, if you are stamping in your project life, I find this to be the perfect time to use your scraps. And I like to pull out my scrap bin every single time I'm using some stamping in my project life. So what I do is I take my stamps and I stamp it on whatever background I want. And generally, because project life is only so big, like these pockets are either a 3x4 or 4x6, at least in the design page protectors that I pick. Because they're so small, you don't really need large scraps. And so I keep all of my scraps that are about any size smaller than a 4x6, basically. I keep in a little like Tupperware container, and it sits on the bottom of my desk. So anytime I'm doing stamping, I like to pull that out and just find a coordinating paper to go with my project life spread or my card or whatever it is that I'm actually doing the stamping on. Now, I don't have any problem stamping directly under the card or the background, but especially when I'm doing project life, I want it to be on something that's a contrasting color. That way it stands out against the background. Like that banner on that top photo of the cannon, Kalen's pretending like he's shooting the cannon. That needed to be a contrasting color to the background. That way it would stand out. And so that's why I chose that red tone-on-tone chevron paper. Now, just the same, I have this light pink paper here at the bottom that I just stamped that small banner on, and that is from the Planner Basic stamp set once again. And then I'm going to pull out the large banner stamp set again, the same one that I got that word date from, and I'm going to stamp love. And as you can see, they don't perfectly fit into these banners, but I feel like it gives a bit of added interest with the letters slightly hanging off or being slightly too large for the banners. So I just stamped love right there on top of that pink banner, and it's going to go on that card with Kalen and his grandparents. As you can see, nothing is adhered down except for the doily sticker, and that's about it. And the of course, any alphas that I've added, but everything else is still kind of floating around. Every time I do project life, and I'm actually this way with my scrapbook pages as well, I kind of delayed the decision making for a moment until I get to a point where I need to actually stick it down. Like this date label needed to be stuck down because I'm adding some alpha stickers right on top of it. And I'm just going to use these really small alphas. I believe they are from, I want to say they're from either actually I think it is Fancy Pants. So they had, and they still do, I believe, a 12x12 sheet with a bunch of different alpha options. And so I like to cut those alphas out to where they're just the single color. It's just a lot easier for me to flip through them and use them. And it just happened to be that I needed to use the red one on this one. And I believe those are actually from a Christmas collection sticker sheet. Now I'm using that same red tone-on-tone chevron paper here to create my little banner that's going to be my flip tab. These banners are perfect for this. I actually love this stamp set the most to use in my project life. Now I know it's actually designed to be a planner stamp set, and I think I've used it in my planner maybe once or twice, but personally I find it more useful to use in my project life. I just like the size of them. You could actually write in them if you write small enough. So this is where I'm trying to determine exactly how I'm going to do this flip pocket. So since this Project Life spread, just the way that it lands in my album, it's on the back side of a page protector. And what that means is that the front side actually has the openings, and since this goes on the bottom, there is no opening on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little bit of a hinge between my photos, and then I will sew it on the outside of the page protector. So my photos will actually be exposed. They're not going to be encased in a page protector like they normally would be if you were using, the traditional Project Life style, which is where each card would be encased in the Project Life like pocket. So as you can see, I created my little bit of a hinge, and then there's just that bit of the acetate paper hanging off the back, and that's what I'm going to use to sew on to the Project Life pocket, and then I'll trim off the excess like acetate piece that's hanging off. It's not acetate, but whatever it is, the plastic piece. And as you can see, I just adhered those two little banners back to back to create my flip pocket. So I moved it for just a moment so I can kind of see how each of the photos looks, and then there you can see it with the flip pocket on top. Now, in our time downtown, as we were walking around, we went to a couple different museums, and I picked up a couple brochures. I like to do that whenever we're going into museums and places like that, because you never know what you might want to include in your album, whether it's maps or ticket stubs, or sometimes they have better photos than what you can take. I always kind of keep that memorabilia together. Now, this is really the only thing from all those brochures that I use, which is just, it says North Carolina State Capitol, and but you never know. Sometimes you can really use a good amount of those things. I'm going to go ahead and create my journaling lines, and I wanted to make sure that that pen was not going to smear before I continued to move my ruler up on top of it. If I had thought about this ahead of time, I could have started the lines from the other direction, and then I wouldn't have been covering the lines as I went. But, I don't always think so far ahead. Excuse me. I'm just doing my journaling. Now what this card actually says already printed on there, it says, "My heart is full of happiness," and then I used a little blue word strip, and it says, "Here's the story." And then I'm going to write out my journaling. My journaling just says, "Kaylin absolutely loves his grandparents. When we go out, he likes to sit in the back seat with them or in the booth between them at dinner. I love that he is so close to them." And this is exactly what this photo is. This is I'm going to have a little arrow that points to the photo below. Kaylin wanted to sit with his grandparents, so Ernest and I are sitting in the front seat of his dad's car. Ernest is driving his dad's car, and then his parents are sitting in the back with Kaylin on our way, and he's sitting right in between them, playing and talking, as you can see. And then I'm just using one of these rub-ons that has a little arrow pointing down, and that's what I'm actually going to use to kind of indicate what photo this journaling is about. As I go throughout my project life, I am constantly moving things around and then realigning them so I can kind of see how they go together. And then I added this little gold heart here at the bottom. I needed a little bit of gold somewhere else on the layout, since that journaling card that says smile on it is in gold. It needed to have just a little bit more gold at some point somewhere else on the layout. I'm using a little geotag stamp from the Planner Basics stamp set, and I'm going to put it right here where Kaylin is pointing. It's going to take me a while to figure out exactly where I want to put it. I'm sorry, the pink one is going to be right there where it says North Carolina State Capitol, right on that cannon photo, and then I'm going to cut another one and put it on that Raleigh map. And then as you can see, I moved the banner over from the cannon. This is another reason why I don't normally adhere things down until I'm ready to commit, because I'm constantly moving things and trying to tweak things and figuring out what I feel looks best. In case I did not mention it, because I don't remember, the alpha stickers that I put on top of the date label say dinner, so it says dinner date. And this is just the 5 of us going out, Ernest and Kaylin and I, and then his parents as well. Playing around with these rub-ons, trying to figure out what I want to do. I want to embellish this yay card just a little bit. I didn't have a whole lot of journaling that I wanted to do. So I'm taking the rub-ons, and I'm going to rub off the one that says Sunshine. And the reason I picked this one is because it's in gold, and as I mentioned, I need a few more little bits of gold throughout the page, but it wasn't rubbing onto the vellum like I kind of had hoped it would, so I just used this blue kind of distressed looking pattern paper that was in my scrap bin, and I use the rub-on there, and that's going to bring a little bit more of this blue into the spread itself. Now, of course, I mentioned there's blue on the photos, but there's not a whole lot of blue in the actual embellishments, so having the blue here kind of helps bring it all together. I'm not really a single color kind of scrapbooker, but sometimes things just fall into place. So when I was flipping through the cards at the very beginning, I didn't just settle on pink. It just kind of happened that way because I felt like that's what looked best. And since I have that other doily on the one card, I have a small one on the rub-ons from the On Trend 2 collection rub-ons, and so I just kind of use it on the other side of that same card to kind of offset that. Now I've got these C'est La Vie black and gold little word stickers, and there's one that says start here, so I'm adhering that right to the photo, right where Kaylin is pointing, and then I'm creating another little blue geotag just like that pink one that I created originally, and I'm going to cut it out. And then there was on that Planner Basic stamp set, there was also a little like dinner tray, and I'm going to use that since I'm talking about us having a dinner date with the family. And since they're so tiny, I decided to go ahead and just use some little tiny glue dots to adhere those, just making it easy on myself here. Kind of getting to the point where I need to start adhering the things that are not adhered down because things keep moving. It's already hard enough with me moving the cards around constantly, and then to have the little elements start to shift around as well, it doesn't really make it that easy to do. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I create the flip pocket because you're not actually going to see me sew it. So you can see as I embellish the last little bit here, just using some of the similar elements that I already have going on the page. But that flip pocket has that extra piece of plastic hanging off the back that I mentioned to you that I would trim down. What I do is I line that card up with exactly how it looks on the card on the inside. So I see how the card fits on the inside, and then I hold my card on top of that, and then I stitch along that hinge. That hinge, which you cannot see, actually sticks up above the photo just a little bit. So I am going to stitch along that top of that little plastic hinge that I created, and just stitch right along the page protector where the seam is on the top of this particular pocket. And then I take the excess plastic that's hanging down and just cut it off. All you need is enough plastic for the hinge to be there. You don't need any extra plastic hanging down or anything like that. Now, there are other ways to create flip pockets, and I will definitely be doing a video dedicated to that at some point because I think I have like 5 or 6 different ways that I create flip pockets now, and I've had a lot of people ask me how I do that. So I definitely want to make sure that I share that with you guys. And this is where excuse me, this is where I'm adding my last little bit of journaling. Now that EA card is going to have journaling on it, and what it just says is, today was such a beautiful sunny day, so we went to tour a bit of downtown Raleigh. And then I'm adding this last little bit of journaling here on the family time card that says, Granddaddy is Kaylin's absolute favorite dude. They have such a special bond. And this is really going to finish out this layout. Make sure you go check out the Sonshine Stamp Company blog, which I will link in the description box below. I have links to all of the stamp sets that I used down at the bottom as well. Please let me know if you guys have any questions whatsoever, and I will chat with y'all later. All right, guys. Bye.